You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
What's going on, everybody? Our apologies for starting late today. Carter Hutton had to piss. Nick Alberga, Carter Hutton, presented by Bet365. It's the Thursday edition of Leafs Morning Take. How about that for transparency, Huts?
Yeah, that's an opening right there. Eh? Well, come on, I don't want to pee in my pants is not cool, okay? Everyone knows that.
Method to the madness, though, and producer Vic, I credit him. Was there ever a time in your career or moments where you had to piss during a game?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I can't say that I've ever peed my pants, though, while I'm playing. I feel like maybe I've had some risky farts, though. You know what I mean? You're like,
yeah.
And again, I don't know. You're just you got a sore stomach and you got to get to the period. And I drank tons of coffee when I played, too, something to keep me fired up. So, yeah, at times that could be risky. You're in second period, power play. You can't trust a fart. It's tough. It's tough times sometimes when you're in the pipe.
Buddy, that is the worst experience of all time. And I vividly remember one of my trips to Europe, maybe like 10 years ago. I got like a stomach bug having like eating ice and like Mykonos. And obviously you're just getting shit faced in Greece. That's what you do there. And we were on this bus, like a Kentucky tour, and we weren't stopping, man. Like there was a couple of wet sharks. Like I ended up shitting myself pretty much, dude. It was the worst experience of my life. Like, man, you want to take a man's dignity away from him or anybody in general, have them like close to shit themselves. It is the worst feeling on earth. I don't know how we got to that conversation, but man, it's terrible.
Oh man, viewership's gonna be up today. The chat's gonna be
when you have
nuts.
to chuck those boxers into the garbage and you're like
That's
curtains.
It. Yeah, there's
and
no
the worst thing,
there's no cleaning that. There's no cleaning that.
And the worst thing about Eastern Europe and the majority of these countries, and I'm not sure if you've been, they actually promote the fact that when you wipe your ass, you put it in the garbage. You don't flush it with the toilet because the strength is not there.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
So in Greece specifically, when you go there, and I'm sure it's still the same way that when I went a couple years back where you like clean your ass, man, you're putting in the garbage. Think about that. It is wild stuff out there.
Yeah, that's gross. That is gross. This is the talk, a huge win last night, and this is where we're at, and I love it. I love this show, Nick. I love anywhere we take it, and I'm sorry I had to go to the bathroom, Vic. I'm sorry I delayed you. You caught me up. Look at this. I look good. You got me going here. I got a fresh haircut, too, this week.
Saw that.
Looking young. I shaved. I don't know. I could pass I'm in my 30s. I'm just a guy in my 30s.
Moral of the story, Huts was late, so our apologies for getting way off to start today's podcast. And my apologies to Sick Kids. I'm about to bring them up. Our Super Chat charity part of this season is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and 3rd in the world, man. A daily look at the standings. The Maple Leafs now 3 points up on Tampa, who have 97. The Leafs at 100. Florida 94. Ottawa 90. Montreal 87. So closing in on a division title, your Huts.
Closing in on it. It's exciting times, man. That was a good game last night. I thought there was two tales of the way it went. And obviously to get those 2 points is huge. On a back-to-back after the Florida game and where everything has gone in these divisions and these wildcard hunts, to be sitting atop of the division has value, right? I know it doesn't mean all until we get to the playoffs and we have to win rounds and find ways to go. But I think there is confidence in finishing first in the division here, Nick.
Hopefully they don't shit themselves. I mean, everything comes together, right? But I think sitting pretty with 4 games remaining in this season to have this ability to close things out, I thought that was a crucial win. It was an exciting game, a fun game on Wednesday night in Tampa, I felt.
It was. It did feel fun. I thought in the third period, some snarl. I was texting you at one point there when Bobby McMahon dropped a glove. I wish they would have let them go there at that point. I know the sticks were tied up a bit because I would have loved to see him throw. I think that would have brought a lot of energy. Obviously, the whole Matthew Knies, what went down, that was unbelievable. And I think there felt energy. And that kid owns that team. That was exciting. And I think that, again, is a confidence boost, I think, for them, like headed into playoffs, right? If you do get that Tampa matchup in the second round or wherever it's at, it's good to have good mojo in certain buildings against certain teams because, it's going to start coming at them quick and fast here when the playoffs start.
We're going to talk about everything. We're going to cover everything on today's podcast. I was going to mention as well, I'm not sure if you watched some of the late night hockey, but Jordan Binnington snapped again. And surprise, surprise, it was Corey Perry that ignited him. Did you catch that?
I did. Just one of those unintentional I ran into where he skates right in the face. And I think Binnington's reaction's a bit over the top, but I get it. Corey Perry knows what he's doing. Binnington's in a vulnerable position. His head's right out. He's lying on the ice. And That's what Corey Perry does, though. He's a shit disturber, and it's one of those plays where I think he obviously needs to be a little smarter. You could have injured him there, but that being said, Binnington ran hot, and that's the first time I've seen Binnington in a while, like, snap his crayons a bit. So not a good sign if I'm the St. Louis Blues heading into a 7-game series where teams are going to be like, hey, run him, get him off his game, because he's going to be a difference maker if they want to win.
Yeah, it was like he went on a peace treat, like, where retreat, I should say, where it was like, I'm just going to be quiet. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to be chill. But I was laughing the other night too, when, I don't know if you caught this as well. It was Radko Gudas on Corey Perry. And I had a tweet lined up and I couldn't put it out there into the universe, but it was pretty much like, oh no, the 2 dirtiest players in the league going toe to toe. Do I feel bad? Not really. It was like Gudas had a nasty elbow on Perry, man. And Oilers fans were pissed. And I'm like, I can't promote that because it's Corey Perry. How many dirty things has that guy done in his career?
Oh, so many, right? And that's part of like a skill set too. And I think it's a bit of a lost art, the gamesmanship, but like when it comes back around the other way, you can't feel bad for him, right? You have to think about all the stuff they ditch out. And I feel like most people understand that. And again, I think there is an art to it and there is value in a game that is just so high on skill and speed, where Corey Perry and, Gudez and Marchand and Tkachuk and Sam Bennett, these guys that we see consistently in the playoffs, like even Matthew Knies last night, this is an element to his game that we need, right? And I think that's an important element as we start to get in the playoffs, as we watch the 1-minute penalty, right? I heard that term the other day, and I really like that because the way things get bogged up in the playoffs and the interference and the refs kind of put their whistle away, you need guys with a little bit of sandpaper to really go the distance.
Oh, buddy, don't worry. I got a couple of things to say about the refs as well. But first, I want to tell you about our playoff merch. Now we go. Here's the T-shirt in white. We got 3 variations of this thing. But after Bleeding Blue last season, our slogan this time around is Now We Go. And hopefully we go for a while. If you're ready to rep the team in style this spring, head on over to nationgear.ca right now to buy some fresh, new TLN playoff merch. Dude, I can't believe the Stanley Cup playoffs are nearly here. And you get that feel. Baseball's back. It's Masters weekend and the postseason, 10 days away here.
Yeah, I always laugh when Masters is on, and I think back to so many different times where I remember vividly playing in St. Louis, and where like the backup goalie sits in St. Louis. I don't know if you can pitch this, but the tunnel comes out right where he sits, the stick rack, and then there's a long hallway, and down that hallway there's like a bar right where you come out of the room when they redid the arena. And I remember Masters Sunday, we had a game, like a matinee game against Colorado. And all I remember, every single shift, guys would go on for a shift. They'd come off. They'd be like, Hutz, what's going on? So I'd be all game. I didn't even pay attention to the game. I just walked down the tunnel, checked to see who was making putts, what was going on. Every guy had money on the line. So it was funny. All the veterans, I remember the coach just being like, Hutz, pay attention to the game. I'm like, I'm trying to, but every single guy needs to know what's going on in the Masters. So it's a funny time of year, but exciting. That's for sure.
Perfect segue to today's guest and promoting him, former St. Louis Blue, former Toronto Maple Leaf, among other squads. Carlo Colaiacovo now with First Up and TSN 1050, doing a great job with Aaron Krolnick in the mornings on TSN Radio. Coco is going to drop by here in about 20 minutes here, Hutz.
Yeah, it's awesome. I've had a chance to get to know him a little more. Once in a while I jump on their show in the morning, and just a good hockey mind, good player. And he's bounced around different teams, and now he sees it from both sides. So it will be an exciting take to see what he thinks, because he usually has some good hot ones.
At the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Think you know hockey? Play Sobeys My NHL Picks weekly for the chance to win big prizes, like a trip for 4 to this year's Stanley Cup Final. A new slate of games opens up every Thursday from now until the end of the regular season. So download the Sobeys app and start playing today. As you see on your screen right now, my picks last week, I believe it went 3 for 5. This week, I think I took Montreal a couple times. I don't think we have the video, but I think I took Montreal a couple times. And I can't believe that the slate's winding down. We started this partnership with Sobeys maybe about a month and a half ago, and I've actually done pretty well on my picks, and so have you. I think you put out the statistics the other day. What are you, like, plus 40 this year?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. I split the other night. I'm going to do a pick for tonight's game. I'm not sure what game I'm going to get into. Usually I wait and kind of see who's starting and get a feel for it. But it's been a good run, so you can check that out, obviously, on Daily Faceoff starting goalies. And it's been fun. I guess maybe on the other side of it now, trying to use my advantage to, like, the travel and the setup, and like thinking about, like, if I was getting that start as the backup, like how I would feel in the matchup. So it's been fun trying to use that angle as a little bit of an advantage here.
In support of Sick Kids, Chad Doyle starts us off here in terms of super chats today. Knies needs a wheelbarrow to carry his boulder-sized man plums. That's the first question I had for you on today's podcast. Bigger neck or bigger nuts, Matthew Knies? What's your answer?
Oh, I think after last night, I gotta say bigger nuts, man. Like to have an interview as like a rookie, pretty much, not a rookie, but like a guy who's just kind of in the league. You're just kind of has obviously cut his teeth here a little bit, but to talk about like a soft game into the media in Toronto and have this like feedback after a tough loss in Florida, and then to come out and match that with that performance and just like staring down the eye of the barrel, Chernak chirping him on the way to the bench, and then coming out getting the hat trick. Between the legs, like just an unbelievable effort from him last night, following up that, poor performance in Florida and calling out his team and himself,
Dude, incredible. That's exactly it. That he had the choice words. He called out his team to an extent the other night, and then just to come out the way he does against a team he just quite frankly owns in his career, I think was surreal to me. Like Matthew Knies has been playing playoff hockey for the majority of the season, specifically the last little while. And the thing for me is the consistency. Like, I think that's the difference in young players in the NHL. Can you be consistent on a nightly basis? Like, for example, I know Knies is a couple years on him. Connor Bedard is a guy who has been unable to hit that next level so far in his early young career. And I think you look at the lineup placement. I think the thing that's not talked about enough is how truly difficult it is to play with guys like Matthews and Marner, who are just above everybody else in terms of skill and talent level. And Knies is just blended in perfectly, man. He knows his role in that line. Very similar, I would say, to like back in the day with like a Zach Hyman.
Yeah, he does. And that's important, right? Sometimes the best way to fit in a line is to not get in the other way of the other players. And I think he does a great job as he complements that and just knowing the wherewithal to where to be and what to do and kind of his role along the wall and in front of the net and generating offense and retrieving pucks and battling to like create space for them. And it's been fun to watch as a younger player. He's obviously an absolute beast though, too, right? Because you look at guys coming in 22, he's been able to push around and find space in that play. So and even last night, just the awareness to, he makes that play to Morgan Rielly where sometimes guys are going to spin off that play, but he goes right to another scoring area right on the back of the net. And that's a world-class play by Austin Matthews last night, too. He puts it through the guy's triangle, quick pass across, but the awareness from Knies to get to the right position where he needs to be. And again, I think this has been a slow growth, right? We've loved Knies since he's been there, but now you're starting to get that everyday grind and what he can. I think you start to gain a little bit of confidence, not cockiness and arrogance, but because you kind of need that at times, right? If you're going to play that style of play, you have to have a bit of an edge. And I feel like we're starting to see it now, and it's fun to watch.
He has a nose for the net. I think the polarizing thing about Matthew Knies, it's not highlight reel. I know he goes between the legs in the 2-on-1 there in OT and then ends up scoring moments after, but I think it's his versatility. I think it's all facets of the game, but his nose for the net, every goal, very Hyman-esque, man, 3-4 feet from the net. He just knows where to be and he knows the right spots to be. And these guys are so good. They put it on a tee for him, but he finishes, which is great to see.
Yeah, no, and I heard a saying one time when I was playing, and it talked about like having brains to go to the net instead of balls, right? Because honestly, you need brains to go to the net because that's where the money is, and that's where the pucks are, and that's where you're going to find loose pucks and create offense. Because there's that old saying of it takes a man, it takes balls to go to the net. But honestly, to be smart and do that, I played with a player, Patrick Hornquist, who was so good net front, right? And he would score so many goals, and what he didn't make up for in size, he made up for in tenacity. And I see characteristics of, for Matthew Knies, of that, of just generating and being there and being a compliment to these players, because you need the perfect mix, right? We see it all the time. You can't play fantasy hockey when you're in the NHL. You need players that fit together and fit properly. And I think slotting is so important. Again, you have guys that are in unique roles here with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but Matthew Knies really fills a void here that I think brings a lot of value to this team. Not just now, but when playoffs start. I think his game makes sense for the Toronto Maple Leafs come playoffs.
The best thing about him is that he is not like the other guys in Nylander, Matthews, Marner, Tavares, where I think he brings something that this team has direly needed in the top six. They thought they had it to an extent with Michael Bunting, but honestly, something they've been missing since Zach Hyman. I hate to keep bringing that name up because it brings up some PTSD in this market, but I just think the talent level alone, the IQ, as you just referenced, and is this a hot take to suggest he scores 40 goals one day in the NHL? Like, can you see a pathway where Knies gets to the level? He's got 29 right now.
Not at all. I don't even think that's stepping out too far, man. I think the way he plays and his value, and with these kind of players, right? I feel like if he was on an island by himself, I would be a little more pessimistic to him getting to 40. But like with the creative players they have and the value they bring and shots in the net and his intelligence to go to those tough areas, if Zach Hyman can do it, well over 50, I think this is enough stretch to see Matthew Knies score 40 at all.
The numbers against Tampa, and we talked about this in our betting segment brought to you by Bet365 yesterday, are insane. It's an auto bet. Like it's similar to Claude Giroux when he plays the Leafs. You just bet on Claude Giroux to pick up a point. He's going to get it right away. I mean, 5 minutes in, Knies gets that point. He gets the goal. We're all happy. But now 9 total games in his career against the Lightning. He has 10 goals, 6 assists, 16 points, plus 13 player. 10 of his 44 career goals have come against Tampa. That is utter domination against a franchise who Toronto just seems to have their number, man. And this is why a month ago I brought up the fact that they would not scare me in the slightest to play Tampa in the first round here.
No, I've kind of beat that drum too, Nick. The fact of the matter is they just seem to match up better, right? And I don't know if it is because of that grit factor that I think Barkov brings and to Chuck and Bennett, and they just seem to play this team very well and strong. And I think there is like a mental psyche that's involved in that, having confidence in a certain building. And it's something I felt throughout my career where sometimes you go into buildings and it's just like you have a little bit of seed of doubt in there. And there's just like, man, this is going to be a rough one or whatever it is. And again, I think that can, deteriorate your group a bit. But that being said, what a run by Knies. This is unbelievable, to put up the hat trick last night. And for me, again, I circle back to it. His comments after the Florida game, I was like, kind of like, I respect it. But then to come up and, like back it up with your play. And he did that. And it's a man's league. And that's what he did.
Cut from a different cloth. And I mean, there's a reason early on, a couple games into his career, Jay Rosso came on this podcast and said he envisions Matthew Knies being a future captain, which again is pretty strong wording for a guy who's only a couple years in this league, but he does have that leadership quality, the IQ, put your money where your mouth is, talk the talk, walk the walk. Like there's just a bravado, a confidence to Matthew Knies. And we knew from the get-go, it was just going to be a really, really good relationship with him. Like you just listen to Berube talk about the kid too, man. Like he's a guy who's easy to like from a coach's perspective, I think too.
Yeah. And I feel like there's so much value in like predictability of a guy's game, right? Knowing that each night he's going to go out and go to bat for you. And I've seen this so many times throughout my career where sometimes guys later in their career continually get contracts and you're like, oh, I wonder why they didn't go with a younger option. It's because like it's better the devil And I think that's what you're starting to see here now with that relationship between Craig Berube and Matthew Knies is he knows what he's going to get from him every night. And to be able to throw a younger player over the boards every night, know you're going to get a consistent effort and he's going to be good on the other side of the puck. He's going to help generate. There's so much value in that when you're trying to run a bench, right? Where we talk about some of these other players lower in the lineup, the inconsistency in their play is why they're healthy scratches and why they aren't in the lineup all the time. Because one thing coaches love, management loves, is a guy that they know that they're going to get no fuss from on or off the rink. There's a ton of value there, Nick.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's get to the crease. We'll pause a second and get to Anthony Stolarz. But another thing that stands out for me, the Leafs seem to have the book on Andrei Vasilevskiy. It's the weirdest thing ever, man. They'll lose to a third-string guy who's never played an NHL game, but for some reason with Vasi, they light him up consistently now, man. Did you know the last 5 outings against Andrei Vasilevskiy, the Leafs have scored 4 goals? Like, this guy is a first-ballot Hall of Famer. I think, in my opinion, a top 3 goaltender ever. And I'm not saying that lightly. Like, I think he is. He's incredible. And the Leafs have a book on him for some reason.
I know it's weird. Again, it's just one of those things. They seem to get to him, and I don't know if it's him or it is the way the Leafs generate or how they know to create. And again, even looking back at that last playoff series when they beat them, how many pucks they got to the net from the point with traffic to just find the back of the net. And I think having scouting reports, and I think something that has happened more and more, it was started to get incorporated more later in my career, is the fact that they bring in like goalie coaches and they work with shooters and starting to understand where before they would just have a pie chart. It's a goalie cutout they would have, and it would show like 54% blocker side, 25% glove side, 15% 5-hole. It would have like 5 spots where they get scored on. They'd kind of isolate that in the room for the players to see. And then they show a few clips of goals getting scored on the goalie, it'd kind of run before a game where what they do now, I remember Dave Alexander was the first one I really seen do it in St. Louis, is he would actually hold meetings with the team about the opposing goalies, especially when you get ready for playoffs or teams you're going to see all the time. And then you start to see habits and you start to see tendencies. And I think for these players, they're so smart now and cerebral that they start to understand that, where it necessarily doesn't mean you have time and space, but to know where that puck is and if it crosses a line, what the goalie's reaction is, so you can make plays immediately and see where you can kind of break him down. So I think it's been the evolution of goalie coaching and goalies to really have a good scouting report on who you're facing.
All in all, bizarre stuff to start that game. The Leafs go up 2-0, but Tampa hits 4 posts in the first 7 minutes of that hockey game. When that happened, I'm like, the Leafs are winning this game. I know it was a weird, long road to get there, to win it in OT and the goal from Knies. But Anthony Stolarz, what's the old saying? Lucky to be good, good to be lucky. I thought he made some brilliant saves. And at the end of the day, he outdid a first ballot Hall of Famer, again, in Andrei Vasilevsky here.
He did. Yeah. He was a difference maker. And again, I'm not like, I do agree the posts are close calls, but again, like if it's an inch the other way, it's not in the net. So it doesn't matter. It's not in the net. Like everyone gets so infatuated. I feel like that is a conversation, especially on the feed of like, well, they've hit 4 posts tonight. Well, you didn't even hit the net. Like it's not going in the net.
That's such a goalie answer, man.
I know, but it is though. It's the truth. Like, what does it matter? Like, so what if it was inside the post, maybe it hits his shoulder or whatever. So I'm the post, you could throw out the window. I could care less about the post. If it ain't going in, don't talk to me. But again, some key saves. I thought overtime was exciting. A big save on the breakaway on point, like just the read, the big long legs, not to just butterfly though. You see how he didn't butterfly there, how he like kicks his pad up. That's a big read and some big saves. And they had a nice clip of him behind the net where when they scored the winning goal, how excited he was, right? Talk about meaningful games. And this was a meaningful one last night for Stolarz.
I love how vocal he is. Were you a vocal guy playing?
I was like,
yeah.
But like I would have fun though too. Like honestly, when I was at my best, man, I was just like having fun, goofing around, being myself. And then I would like redial in. But I definitely use communication to help guys out. And I think for me, it was more like to stay in the game. And I think Anthony Stolarz would probably be the first one to tell you that. It just keeps you sharp, right? Like when it might be a simple play, like the D-man knows what he's going to do with the puck, right? But you're talking it through. It just keeps you dialed in while the play is going on.
It's been about 12 hours since that game. I still have no fucking clue what Bob McMahon did in that third period to warrant a call, to get the extra 2, to give Tampa the power play to tie the hockey game up. It is such a damn struggle for the Toronto Maple Leafs to get power plays. In fact, I stayed up late last night, and I'm like, I got to get to the bottom of this, okay? I did some digging in terms of statistics, in terms of power plays per game, total, opportunities. The Leafs rank 18th. 206. That's the amount of power plays they've had this season. And power plays per game, they're ranked 21st in the NHL, 2.67. It is such a struggle for that team to draw a penalty. And then you look at that bullshit to give Tampa, one of the best power plays in the league, a chance to tie that game. Insanity to me. I hated how the refs took over that game in the third period, because they did.
Yeah, you don't want that, especially when you watch certain games like late in the season here where you see so much like BS that goes on, right? Like little picks, and they slow the game down. And I don't love it too. I don't love how, I guess maybe something I've struggled with now on the other side of it is we ref the games in the regular season a certain way, right? We want to promote offense and scoring and talented players. And we put all these skilled guys on pedestals to promote the game, which is what we want. And then all of a sudden it gets to big games. And then all of a sudden the reffing changes. And then all of a sudden we have like different calls, and it's like a different rule book. And I think that's bullshit, because it is the fact of the matter is like, now you're trying to build a team that can play to win in the regular season. And then you got to play a team that can play under these different set of rules come playoff time. And I think we, as hockey in general, we shoot ourselves in the foot when it comes to that, Nick.
Yeah, it was just infuriating. I know Zachy had a nice little rant that he put out on Twitter last night, but it just made no sense. It was like, we're going to give Tampa a power play for the hell of it, where it's like, you could probably even argue that the Leafs should have got a power play. There was a cross check to the back of Nick Robertson on the very same play, but at the end of the day, the Leafs do get the 2 points. Tampa gets 1. You mentioned it earlier on. Bob McMahon drops the mitts with Braden Point, the 13th different Leaf to fight under Craig Berube. I don't know about you. That was the one thing I was looking forward to seeing, is how different of an impact they had with Berube. And this is a big difference. Whereas like last year was like Ryan Reeves, Benoit. That's about it. They got 13 different guys who have dropped the gloves this season. I love to see that, dude.
Yeah. Again, you tell me that's not a culture thing, right? You tell me that's not like, guys sticking up for guys and creating an atmosphere where it's like we all are in this together. So I think that is a test to the head coach and to the leadership. You know what I mean? A bunch of guys that want to win now and they want to create a legacy. And I think it's been important for this team moving forward to set that tone. And necessarily, it's not always going to be dropping the gloves, right? I think it's just the fact of the matter is like that next up mentality of, you know, you're going to mess with one of us, we're all going to stick together. And I think that is that pack mentality that holds a lot of value still in the NHL.
Certainly the big story from last night's game was the top line. Knies gets a Hatty, Matthews 3 apples, Marner 1 and 2. And just before we get to Carlo Colaiacovo, I just think it was a very, very solid response here when you look at that top line, considering how dog shit they were against Florida, right? They had combined for 1 shot on goal, including Nylander in that conversation too.
Yeah, again, good bounce back, right? And that's what you're going to need, right? You're going to have to find, and it's this time of year where it's like back to backs. There's going to be a little bit of setbacks, and you're trying to manage your minutes and you're trying to manage your, you know, your output. Because at the end of the day, that black cloud looming over this team is the playoffs coming, right? That is where the pressure is going to be and where you're at. And one thing I can tell you late in the season, there's really no catching up, right? Like if you're not ready to go come playoff time, there's really no chance to catch up because everything gets cranked up so much come playoff time.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. This interview is brought to you by our friends over at Greta Bar. Whether it's before, during, or after the game, it's the place to be on King Street West. Awesome street food and wicked arcade games. 590 King Street West. Greta Bar. Let the games begin. Make sure you go check out First Up, TSN 1050 Toronto. My boy AK and Carlo Colaiacovo, today's guests, holding things down. Former Toronto Maple Leaf Carlo Colaiacovo now joins us. What's going on, Coco?
What's up, fellas? Little Masters action, little Leafs morning take. Gotta love it.
Lots cooking, dude. And thank you so much for doing this. I'm just talking about last night's game, and I'm trying to find that call on Bobby McMahon. I'm sure you guys talked about it today. How'd you feel about that?
Sorry, the call on Bobby McMahon?
In the third period, yeah.
Like, I can understand where the referees probably look at Bobby McMahon and call the shot to the head that Bobby McMahon initiated at first. But when you see two guys drop the gloves like that, I mean, I don't think there's a need to single one guy out. I love what Bobby McMahon did, especially given the fact that it was against Braden Point. I love what Braden Point did too. I mean, he's a guy you don't expect to fight, but you didn't like what Bobby McMahon was taking exception to. So you got to love the spirited bout that those two guys had. And it's unfortunate it ended up in a power play for the Lightning, who ended up capitalizing on it. But I wasn't a fan of the call, but I was a fan of the game. The game was pretty awesome to watch.
Yeah, Carlo, for me, obviously, you know, a big win, right? Especially bouncing back from the Florida game and where they're at, a little bit of snarl in that third period, right? You see that bite, and obviously Matthew Knies was the story of the night. You know, like his development, where he's become and the kind of player he is. Like, what's his ceiling? Like, you know, what do you see this guy becoming?
Well, he's going to score 30 this year. I mean, if he can score 30 on a consistent basis, maybe potentially be a 40 goal scorer. I mean, just look at what this Maple Leafs team has been looking for the last couple of years with the core four in the mix. It's been a revolving door on that left side, right? And he's a guy that came in out of college with a big resume and with a lot of upside. And most people were a little nervous to see, you know, what his upside would be. And I think, you know, the impact that he made in that first year in the playoffs was pretty incredible. You know, the impact that he's made in his short season last year, and even in his second full season. Sometimes when guys come out of college, and I didn't play college, I mean, you've got to allow them maybe a little bit more time to break into the league because they're just not used to the pro schedule. But this guy is you know, a man amongst boys. Like the way his body is built, I mean, he's built like a bull. And I just think that, you know, getting used to the rigors and the everyday expectation in the NHL level is, you know, it's something that they've had to be a little bit more patient with, but it seems like it's paid off because you talk about what teams want to draft or at least look for in developing a player, that power forward type player that can play in the hard areas of the ice, score goals in all areas in the offensive zone. Matthew Knies is that guy. And I think that's what should get a lot of people excited is He can play the grit game, he can play the heavy game, but he can also play the skill game. And kudos to him. He showed everybody he can play the tough game too, because he's not shy to throw drop the gloves and throw the mitts. And I've been really impressed. And last night for me was a huge indication for me about what type of leader this guy could be on the team, because everybody made note of the comment that he made before the game about a 22-year-old calling a player soft. And Hutsy, I don't know how you feel, but when I played the game, one of the most insulting things that somebody could say to me, even now, if somebody calls me soft, like, I don't get offended by much. If somebody calls me soft, it pisses me off. Like, so when you got a young kid on your team that comes out and uses that word, there's a lot that you gotta, step up and back up. And I thought the way he played yesterday shows incredible leadership on his part, because he could have easily, had a quiet game and probably would have, guys would have brought more attention to it. But instead, he uses that word, and he goes out and he's the best player on the ice and helps the Leafs win a big game that they absolutely needed. And it just adds to his resume of how excited we could possibly be about his potential ceiling.
Talk the talk, walk the walk. And that's the great thing, the clutch factor too. But I think the thing that's not talked about enough, Coco, is like how hard it is to play with Marner and Matthews. Like we just talked about, the last guy to probably do it long-term was Zach Hyman, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Nikki. I mean, I said it, the revolving door, right? I mean, there's been a lot of guys that have been given that chance. Remember, they signed Nick Ritchie to be that guy, right? And then Michael Bunting, he established himself as a career NHLer because he found a way to play with those guys. And I think the emergence of both Knies and Bobby McMahon have really solidified that left side in the top six for the Maple Leafs, because, yes, it's great to play with those guys, but yes, it is also absolutely hard to play with those guys because most of the time you're playing without the puck. I mean, those are the two guys that you want having the puck on their sticks. Those are the two guys that are the finishers, are the creators. It's what is that other guy doing to be productive, but not also be productive, but find ways to stay consistent playing with him. And I think Matthew Knies is a great example, because he plays in all the hard areas. He gets those guys the puck, and then he knows where to go when he gives those guys the puck. So you're absolutely right, Nicky.
Yeah, and Carlo, I think he compliments them well too, right? And the fact of the matter is, we talk about those soft comments, but then he backs it up. And these are guys, in my opinion, come playoff time, they're going to drag you into the fight, right? Yeah. Where we've known we have nights where, Matthews and Marner, they could be lost, right? Where I feel like a player like this, he can drag you into the mud and make you, get down there and play that gritty game. And that being said, obviously a big win last night against Tampa Bay, losing the game in Florida. But ideally, who's your preference in the first round here? Obviously, to win the division and just have that home ice advantage. What do you feel from this side of it, sets up well for the Leafs?
Well, look, obviously you win the division, you give yourself a better matchup because you're playing a team that finished lower in the standings. But I don't have a personal preference based on what I think is an easier opponent. I have a personal preference because I'm just so sick of watching Tampa Bay, Florida, Boston, playoff series, that I want to see something fresh. I don't think there's anything better fresh when you're talking about, reinvigorating the Battle of Ontario. I mean, remember when we grew up in our early 20s? I mean, you guys all remember the Battle of Ontario and how many times those two teams played each other, and the battles that came out of those. That's what I get excited about. I get excited about the idea of fresh. That's why I hate this playoff format where they have the division and then you have your wild cards, because for the longest time we've seen the same four teams in the Atlantic Division make the playoffs, and now it's great to see that Ottawa and Montreal have caught up. But I think that loses its luster, right? I mean, how would you feel if you're Edmonton right now? You got to play LA again for the fourth straight year in a row in the playoffs. Like, that's boring to me. So I like the excitement of a Brady Tkachuk playing in his first playoff series. I like the excitement of the Bell Center returning to the playoffs, because I think everybody saw firsthand from the Four Nations. It's probably the most electric building to play in, and that represents everything you want playoff hockey to be. So I don't think – I actually think that whoever gets the Montreal Canadiens and the Ottawa Senators, has a chance to be upset because Ottawa, look, they got Allmark who can steal a game. They've got young players that are hungry to play at this time of the year. And sometimes when you're new to this, you don't really feel all the pressures that come with it. And for Montreal, I mean, they're one of the hottest teams in the league right now. They're playing with house money. They weren't supposed to be here. So, and if they draw Washington, like, what's the status of Logan Thompson? A lot of Washington's success this year is because Logan Thompson's been one of the best goalies in the league. If he's not available, why can't Montreal beat Washington? So I think that's the exciting part about it too.
Coco, I was going to ask you, does this Habs team remind you of, what was it, the 15-16 or 16-17 Leafs when they randomly made the playoffs? I think it was year one with Matthews, and then they gave the Caps a spirited bout in round one. It was Dark Guy season. Remember that? Dark Guy.
Yeah.
Back in darts at the building.
Dark guy. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you can say that about any team that, makes the playoffs in a year where nobody gave them a chance to make the playoffs. And I think that's the exciting thing about Montreal is, like, I do their games, and it's been so much fun to watch them and analyze them all season because they really have been playing with a youthful energy, right? I mean, Cole Caulfield's had a breakout year. Suzuki's had a breakout year. Lane Hudson's my new favorite player to watch, and I'm so glad I get to, cover him on a nightly basis. And Samuel Montembeault, like, last year we do like this fun little project every free agent frenzy where we got to name the Four Nations team or the international teams for Canada and US. And I had Montembeault on my list. And I cannot tell you how many people looked at me and said, Montembeault, are you crazy? I go, guys, I'm telling you, I watched this guy play. He's progressing into being a legit number one goaltender. And with obviously how thin Canada is at that position, he's taken tremendous strides this year. I remember first game of the season against the Leafs. What do you have, 54 saves for a shutout?
Yeah.
And I think, they've obviously rode him and Lane Hudson's emergence and the Patrick Laine, who's been a great addition to them too because he scored some big goals for them. I think when you have that going into a playoff series or even just in a playoff run, I think the pressure is on the other team that plays these type of teams. Because you really don't know what you're going to get out of them. Yes, on paper, you feel like you're better than them. But when you play the game, it's hard to play against players that really don't feel the pressures of playing in the playoffs. And I think Montreal could absolutely embrace that. And you talk about the home ice advantage. That's going to be the Bell Center. Like, that place is going to be electric on most nights.
Yeah, Carlo, I'm with you too. And again, we see it now. Like, what's Buffalo 8-2 in their last,
right?
And like, because there's no pressure, right? It's like we see it all the time. Man, I remember playing on teams. There's no pressure. Even last year, talking about Arthur Shelovs in Vancouver, there was no pressure on him. Right now, he's in the grind of an NHL season. It's not going as well.
Yeah.
But the Leafs crease, right? Like, Stolarz seems to be our guy, right? I think it's a good problem to have two guys. I've obviously gone over this back and forth. Do you think this is the difference maker this year to try to get this team over the hump, is the crease?
Yeah, I think because this is the most comfortable we've felt about the goaltending in a long time, right? Where going in, I mean, with Jack Campbell and even with Samsonov or even, Matt Murray when he was there, you felt like you knew who the guy was going to be, but you were still hesitant to feel comfortable that guy. And I think if there's one thing I can say about the Maple Leafs' last couple of playoff losses is they haven't lost because of their goaltending. Their goaltending has been good enough for them to win those series. The problem with the Leafs is that they just can't score. I mean, I think it's 13 straight games without scoring 3 or more goals. Like, you don't, or 12 out of 13. You don't win playoff series if you don't score. So I think the thing about Stolarz, and Hutch, you can probably explain this better. And the reason why I advocated for the Stolarz signing in the offseason is because even though he wasn't the go-to guy in Florida, in the games that he played, as a defenseman or as a player, I always look at the size of a goaltender. And Stolarz is a monster in the net because of his size and how much he covers in the net. And because of his size, he doesn't have to be like very crazy with his movement. He's just got to be solid with his positioning. And most of the time the pucks are going to hit him. And I think that's what I like about Stolarz is when he plays, you just know that there's not many times the puck's going to beat him because it's just going to hit him because of his size. And not trying to say he's a bad goaltender. That's the reason why he's good. He's very athletic for being for a goaltender, which is another thing that impresses me about him. But I'm a huge fan of Joseph Woll. Like I said it last year, and I still think at some point in his career, he's going to contend for a Vezina trophy. Now, this year, it's a little bit up and down, but I mean, this is the first full year he's played this many games. And we saw him last year. If he was available in Game 7, who knows? Maybe he would have helped them win that Game 7 with the way that he was playing. And I think the combination of how steady and comfortable the goaltending looks and the build of the way or the way their defense is built with size, right-handed shot defensemen, physical defensemen, guys that sort of bring a different element to what you expect playoff hockey to feel and look like with Tanev and Carlo and Ekman Larsson. I think the combination of those two things is what has to make you feel really good about this team contending and even trying to make a long playoff run than previous years.
Hutch, you want to jump off that?
Yeah, I can. I guess I agree with you. Even the fact of the matter is I do still believe that Joseph Woll is the guy, right? Like moving forward, I feel like his ceiling is higher. But the way they defend now and the way they protect Anthony Stolarz on the DN is so valuable. Even last night, I was watching a few clips of just like shots on him last night. And he's like never even in his stance because they protect him so well. He just stands there and then he shifts into everything. He never really beats himself. And what I truly believe is the fact that having these two guys in a leash is a good thing, right? Because you're an injury away. 100%. And what I like, I don't know if you guys feel the same way about this, but having Joseph Woll as the backup, he was in this position last year where we watched Samsonov crumble and he goes in and he has that mental capacity. It feels like even when they show him, like I get the same feel from Sam Montembeault. You touched on him. When they show him right now on the broadcast, no matter what's going on, he's just like dialed in and focused. And I get the same feel from Joseph Woll, where I think Stolarz plays a little bit more off of feel and having fun. And I was kind of that way too, where maybe I needed a little more focus. But I think Joseph Woll, I think, if it doesn't go well and say the first game goes south, you can get Woll in there. And I feel like he can really jump into it. That's the feel I get from these two.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think the Maple Leafs feel that way too. I don't think they want to run into the same situation that Boston tried to run last year where it's one game this guy, one game that guy. I think you're gonna base who plays based on performance, right? And I think Stolarz is the guy that you start with.
Yeah, I agree too. But again, I would not be shocked. We've been talking about this quite a bit. We had John Van Beesbrook on yesterday, and he said he would go with Woll in Game 1. But I think there's going to be a scenario that plays out where Woll gets the crease, and maybe he doesn't look back. But it is prediction time. What is your prediction for the Maple Leafs here in the postseason, Coco?
I don't like making predictions. I actually look. I always have to remind people that I'm not a Maple Leafs fan. I don't live and die off the Maple Leafs.
You're a Habs fan now. That's
what. Yeah, you love that.
I fucking hate that. I'm gonna buy you a Habs jersey. Every time you and Frankie Corrado go on my TV, Lane Hudson this, Lane Hudson that. Go watch Matthew Knies play hockey. Ben Danford, baby, let's go.
Yes, let's do it. I would love to start talking about guys like that. Hey, when was the last time the Maple Leafs drafted and developed a stud defenseman?
Toppy Niemela.
Right, exactly. Well, Rasmus Sandin was supposed to be that guy.
Yeah.
Anyways, going back to my point, I had a bet with one of our management people at TSN, hockey management people. And it was the other night, and they said, I bet you this year there's at least one Canadian team in the conference final. And I bet against it. Because with the 5 teams, they have a lot of odds in their favor. And I hope to see it. I want to see a Canadian team I want to see a Canadian team win the Stanley Cup. I want to see the Toronto Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup. I'm not a fan of the Leafs, but I support them tremendously because I'm an alumni. I talk about them every day. I live in the city. obviously the better they do, the better all of our jobs are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just like I'm at the point right now where I need to see it before I can feel confident in it, because there's so much of the same that has been part of the same history in the past that I just can't feel confident giving it my full vote of approval. So I do think they win round one. I would say it's going to depend on who they play round two as to how confident I feel. I think if they play Tampa round two, this team can easily go to the Stanley Cup final. Not easily, but this team could go to the Stanley Cup final. If they play Florida, I mean, what gives you reason to believe that this team can beat Florida 4 games out of 7 with the way Florida plays?
Nothing.
Right?
Zero. Yeah.
No argument here.
Fair breakdown. Understandable. I think you speak for a lot of Leafs Nation the way you feel about this.
I think the Habs are going to go further than the Leafs.
Okay, that's enough. Great job. Thanks so much for doing this today, and enjoy the playoffs. Okay, we'll talk soon, bud.
Thanks, boys. Always a pleasure.
Carlo.
Take care.
Carlo Colaiacovo did not play for the Montreal Canadiens, but now his favorite team, clearly. loves Lane Hutson, man. Loves Lane Hutson. Loves all the Bleu, Blanc, et Rouge, right? Fucking hate the Habs so much.
I'm a big, at least there's Canadian teams involved, right? I think it's cool that both wildcard teams will be, Montreal and Ottawa, and I love it. But I'm with him on the Leafs. I guess maybe it's just, I made the joke the other night with when I was on with Zach, saying it's like I dated a girl when I was younger and I'd always get in trouble, right? I was playing junior hockey, and Friday, Saturday night, I wouldn't talk to her. And then Sunday I'd come beg for forgiveness. She'd take me back. And I feel like that's my relationship now with the Leafs. It's like, you just don't know what you're going to get. And you're just waiting for them to break your heart again.
Yeah, dude, we're natural pessimists, and people say you're so pessimistic about the Leafs. I'm just looking at the last decade.
Yeah.
Do I have they're gonna fucking actually push through? And I know everything's changed, and we think this is a different team. Ask me in 3 months from now how I feel about this Maple Leafs team. That's all I can pretty much respond with that. Breaking news coming in from Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner, every face-off, hat trick, power play, shot on goal, penalty shot, and every suspenseful minute in between is amazing. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365, an official partner of the NHL. Download the Bet365 app. Use the code NATION. That's NATION, N-A-T-I-O-N. To get into the game, must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you're someone you know has a gambling problem, visit connexontario.ca. Any plays you like today?
Honestly, I think the games now are starting to even out. I guess I thought there would be a bigger race in the East. But the one that I really like tonight is going to be the Jets and the Stars. I think the Jets going down to Dallas, this is a huge matchup, a potential second round matchup. Obviously you got to mix Colorado in there. So, but I like the Jets here in Hellebuck, playing well down in Dallas. So I look for the Jets to, make a statement game as an underdog here in Dallas.
Fair enough. In support of Sick Kids, just to wrap, KPG, thank you so much for the super chat. Everything I just mentioned, you just back it up. He says, F the Habs. Super chat.
Yeah, there we go. There we go, baby. I know I can't.
Yeah.
I think I cheer more for, like, obviously I want Toronto to win, and then I cheer for people, but the Habs is one for me. Like, I couldn't imagine the Habs winning and listening to Habs fans, and like that just makes me sick right now. I'm getting those risky farts back just thinking of it.
Yeah. The most miserable time in my life in recent memory was when the Habs went on that crazy run, and it hurt even more because they beat the Leafs, and the Leafs had that series up 3-1. And they get to the final, and you talk about sharding. They had no business being there. Tampa was so much better. They won it in 5 games, but I don't know what I would have done with myself if the Habs won. And most of I'm from Montreal. A lot of my family are Habs fans. I can't stand the Montreal Canadiens. In fact, I maybe care more that Montreal is not in the playoffs or lose out than I do about the Leafs doing anything substantial. Like, that's my first thing. It's like, make sure Montreal's not there, then the rest is gravy. But Huts, great job today, man. Looking forward, man. I can't believe it. April 19th, the Stanley Cup playoffs get underway. Around then is what the Maple Leafs will drop the puck for game 1. Great stuff today, bud. And we'll look forward to Saturday. The Habs in town.
Yeah, look forward to it. Obviously, some good games ahead, and playoffs are coming, baby. Great time of year.
That is Carter Hutton. Thank you to everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Don't forget as well to visit theleafsnation.com as well as nationgear.ca. Now we go, baby. Go out and grab your new playoff tee. We have them in 3 different colors, navy, black, and clearly the white one I'm wearing right now. Jay Rose will be back in the mix tomorrow. Thank you very much to Carlo Colaiacovo, thank you to producer Vic. And for Carter Hutton, I'm Nick Alberga. Talk tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.